All right, ready to go small. Like, really small.
Smaller than a breadcrumb.
Even smaller. Today, we're diving into the world of microplastics. We've got this fascinating scientific review from Science Journal just out this year.
The 2024 edition, yeah, I saw that one.
That's the one, and let me tell you, it's pretty eye-opening.
What I find fascinating is it goes way beyond, the usual plastic pollution stuff.
You mean it's not just about turtles stuck in six-pack rings?
Exactly. This is about the tiny stuff, often invisible. And it's everywhere, literally, like the bottom of the ocean, the air.
Okay, so basics first. What exactly are microplastics?
Basically, tiny pieces of plastic debris, 5 millimeters or less. Think like a sesame seed, maybe even tinier.
In this review, it helps categorize them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not all the same kind of plastic.
Right. So there's primary microplastics. Those are things like the microbeads in some face washes, designed to be tiny.
Which seem kind of crazy now, knowing they end up everywhere.
Totally. Then you have secondary microplastics. Those are the fragments that break off from larger plastic stuff.
So my water bottle could become a bunch of microplastics eventually.
Yep. It's a slow process, but it happens. In the ocean, landfills, even in our homes, plastics just degrade over time.
Wow. Didn't realize it was happening everywhere like that.
Oh, yeah. And here's a surprising thing, one of the biggest sources. Car tires.
Tires.
Seriously.
No kidding. As they wear down, they shed these tiny particles, and it adds up.
Huh. Never thought about that when I'm driving. What other sneaky sources did they find? Well, think about what you're wearing. Synthetic fabrics, especially fleece, they release tons of microfibers when you wash them.
So it's our clothes, too.
Clothes, paint, cosmetics, even those plastic-coated fertilizers, they're all releasing microplastics. We're kind of surrounded.
So it's in our clothes, our cars, our face wash. Why should we care? What's the big deal with these tiny particles?
Well, the problem is all those tiny particles, they can have a big impact.
And not in a good way, I'm guessing. This review, it really dives into the effects on the environment, right? Wildlife, all that.
Exactly. We're finding microplastics in over 1,300 species.
Wait, seriously, over 1,300?
Yep. Over 1,300 different species. Everything from, tiny little zooplankton all the way up to huge whales.
Wow. And they're eating this stuff. What happens?
A lot of times, yeah, they eat it. And think about it. These little pieces of plastic, they can block digestive tracts, which leads to starvation or even cause internal abrasions.
Ouch, yeah. Like death by 1,000 cuts, but with plastic.
Pretty much. And it gets worse. It's not just the plastic itself. Microplastics can leach chemicals too. Stuff added during manufacturing or pollutants they pick up from the environment.
So like they're little toxic sponges, these microplastics.
You got it. And researchers are seeing those chemicals messing with hormone systems, reproduction, even causing developmental problems in some animals.
Okay, that's depressing. And the thing is, with how these microplastics travel, it's not just a localized problem, is it? I mean, this study found them near the top of Mount Everest.
Right. It really highlights how far they can travel. They can end up pretty much anywhere. Which brings us to the big question, what about us?
Yeah, exactly. It's in the water, the air, even Mount Everest. We've got to be coming into contact with this stuff.
We are. Studies have found microplastics in everything. Seafood, sea salt, honey, beer, even the air we breathe. Hard to avoid it at this point.
So we're ingesting it, but is it actually hurting us? That's what I really want to know.
The million-dollar question. And honestly, we don't know for sure yet. The research is still ongoing.
So we don't know yet.
But here's what we do know. Microplastics have been found in human blood, placentas, even organs like the liver and kidneys.
So it's getting inside of us? Great. That's not ominous at all. Okay, I gotta admit, this is getting a little, I don't know, worrying. Microplastics are everywhere, in us even. What are we supposed to do with this information?
Yeah, I hear you. It's definitely concerning. But it's not hopeless. We don't want to freak everyone out, right? It's about understanding and then figuring out solutions.
Easier said than done, I think. Where do we even begin? It's such a huge problem.
Well, we can start with those primary microplastics, the ones intentionally added to things, like cosmetics, fertilizers, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Some progress has been made there, actually. The microbead ban in face washes, for example.
Right. That was a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. The US, the EU, a lot of countries have banned them. And this year, the EU went even further, banning all intentionally added microplastics in products. There's even a draft UN agreement, might become a global ban.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Microbeads might actually be on the way out. What about, like, the tire dust and fibers from our clothes? That stuff seems harder to stop.
Definitely trickier, yeah. But there are some cool solutions being developed. Imagine like clothes designed to shed fewer fibers when you wash them, or tires made with tougher stuff that breaks down less.
Interesting. So smarter design could be a big part of it.
Huge. And it's not just products. Policy can play a role too. Some experts are talking about eco-modulated taxes. Basically, if a product releases more microplastics, it costs more.
Ooh, I kind of like that idea. Hit them where it hurts, the wallet. But what about all the microplastics that are already out there? Can we clean that up?
$1 million question, right? There are some cleanup efforts happening, but it's a massive undertaking. Expensive, and some methods could even hurt marine life if we're not careful.
So it sounds like prevention is key. But what can I do, like, as a regular person? It all feels kind of overwhelming.
I get it, but every little bit helps, truly. Think about your own plastic use. Could you use reusable bags more? What about a refillable water bottle instead of buying single-use plastic ones? Choosing natural fabrics over synthetic stuff makes a difference. Even just making sure your plastic actually gets recycled is huge.
Okay, so being more mindful, making better choices about the plastics we use.
Exactly. And remember that precautionary principle we talked about. We don't need to have all the answers to start making changes. We know enough about the risks to act now.
That's a good point. This has been a lot to take in, but good information to have.
Definitely. And it's funny, I was thinking, what if instead of just trying to get rid of microplastics entirely, we found ways to actually USC them?
Like, what do you mean?
Some scientists are researching ways to turn microplastics into, like, building materials, maybe even fuel.
Whoa, turning trash into treasure. Now, that's a solution I can get behind, it sounds like. Long way to go, but there's hope. People are working on this.
Absolutely. This is a global issue, so it needs a global effort. But the more we learn, the better choices we can make. For our health and for the planet.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That wraps up our deep dive into the world of microplastics. We learned a lot. Hopefully you did too. Maybe even feel inspired to make a few changes. Until next time, stay curious.